Hello! This video is going to go ahead and review how to complete the Access Table Query Practice Assignment. This is a custom project that has been created, and while it does not follow your e-text step by step, your e-text is expected to be used as a resource when solving these projects. Specifically, this assignment aligns with Chapter 2 of your e-text in terms of how to write the different criteria you need when creating a query in a database. So I'm just going to go through some of the steps of this assignment. The first thing you want to do when you download a database is you want to go ahead and choose Enable Content so that you have access to all of the information. I'm going to go ahead and slide this pane over. This is my navigation pane. It shows me all the different objects I have in my database. One of the first things I always like to do is sort my database by object type by going ahead and clicking this sort option. And then what you'll see is as we build our database and all the different objects, each object will be grouped with similar objects. Step 4 wants us to rename each table, so you just need to right click on the table and you're just always going to append your first and last name to the front. Club members table and donations table. Okay. Remember, you can only rename an object when it's closed, so I don't have the object over here in my object pane. Step 5 wants us to modify the design of the table. So the first thing I want to do is open up the donations table, and you can see that there are 30 records in this database. You can see there I just clicked on number 19, but you can see I have a total of 30 records, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different fields. So those are important things to always note when you're looking at different tables within a database. Every object has both a front view and a back view. So in this case, this object, the table object, we're looking at what's called data sheet view, and that's the front side of the object. You will always see data in data sheet view. If I want to switch to design view, that's going to show me the structure of my object, and so in this case I will see the fields and how they are designed. So step 5b says move the donor first name field above club affiliation. So all you have to do is you can just, this is called the record selector indicator. I can select donor first name and drag and drop it above club affiliation. I can then also move donor last name above first name. And so I can just reorder how that table is going to look. I can also change how information is displayed or entered in the table, and so the next step wants me to increase the decimal place by 2 for the donation field. So I can click anywhere in the donation field. It doesn't matter if I click on the name, the data type, or its description. And then down here under field properties, I can change the decimal places to 2. I'm going to go ahead and close and save the table, and so at this point this is something that confuses a lot of students. So what I'm saving here are formatting or structure changes. I'm not actually saving the actual data in the database. That's one of the things that's very different about databases versus the other Microsoft applications. So when I click Save, it goes ahead and it makes those changes to the donations table, and I can click that Save icon right up here, and then I can just go ahead and right click if I want on this tab and choose Close, and that closes this database object. If I were to open it back up, you would now see that there are 2 decimal places right over here added to all of the monetary values in the donation field. I'm going to go ahead and close that. All right, the next step is all about relationships. So remember, a database is an application that is used to hold all kinds of information. And the difference between Access versus Excel, both of them can be used as databases, is Access is a relational database, meaning the information is related through common fields. If you remember back to those videos you watched in the first lecture, or the database lecture, you'll see how tables are linked is through a common field. And so pretty much from this point forward, you will always be creating relationships in your database. So to do that, you want to first make sure that nothing is open in the object window. You want to make sure all of your tables are closed. And then what I can do is I can go over here to Database Tools, excuse me, and click the Relationships button. And you'll be given this option to add as many tables to the window. In this case, we only have 2, so I can just double click each one and add it. Let's say I got Click Happy. Oh no, I have an extra table here. I added the donations table twice. If you need to remove it, you can just right click on it and choose Hide Table. Now I can go ahead, and if I can grab my mouse here, I can go ahead and expand this table so it's just a little bit easier to see all the fields. And in this course, you're going to always create what's called a one-to-many relationship. And so what that means in this case is one student will be able to have many donations applied to it. And so you're always going to create the relationship through a common field. So you're always going to look for the same field in both tables. And in this case, it is student ID and student ID. And so you just want to grab student ID in one of the tables. It doesn't matter which direction you go. You want to click, hold, drag, and drop it on top of student ID. And you'll get this edit relationship window, and you'll see I have the student ID and the student ID. One from the donation table, one from the club members table. Now I know that I can join them. To actually create the one-to-many relationship, you want to go ahead and put a check mark next to enforce referential integrity. This is actually, checking this box is actually what makes the relationship. Go ahead and choose both cascade options. What that means is as I change information in the database, if it's changed in one table and it's related to information in another, those changes will cascade through. And so you definitely want to make sure that you're looking at the notes for this assignment, because I do explain what enforcing referential integrity means. But basically what's happening here is it's saying that one student can have many donations, but I cannot assign a donation to a student unless that student exists in the database. I can't just randomly add people to the database. I can't just randomly apply donations to students. I have to ensure that everything matches up. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create, and you'll see you get this join line. I know it looks kind of small, so it's a little bit hard to see just because of the resolution of my monitor. But you can see I'm pulling it. I got this like kind of elastic rubber band, and you can see it's tiny little one and a tiny little infinity sign. On your end, I'm sure it's much bigger, but that's how you get that one-to-many relationship. And so a lot of times database developers will go ahead and kind of build out all these tables with all these field names, create these relationships, and then they'll sit down with a client and they'll show them what the tables could potentially look like, what type of information they would be sharing within the database, and that's how they would get a sign-off to start building it. So in order to do that, you want to go ahead and create a relationship report, and to do that, you literally just click this relationship report button, and it just throws everything in this window into a standard layout. You can click Save to accept the default name, click OK, and you'll see now we have a report added here to our navigation pane. I'm going to go ahead and close the report, and I'm going to close the relationship window, but I do want to point out that when we do create the one-to-many relationship, they will always be through a common field. It will be the primary key in one field, so in this case student ID is the primary key in the club members table. Its matching field in the donations, we call this student ID, this is called the foreign key. So just make sure you make note of that. It is listed in the assignment notes. I'm going to go ahead and close this relationship window. It is considered a best practice in the very beginning of building databases that when you're done with an object, you should always close it. All right, to go ahead and show that these tables are now linked, if you open up the club members table, you will now see there are little pluses next to each record. And if I expand it, I can see that in this case, Michael Bryant has 2 donations assigned to him. And down here, Emmeline Flores, she has 2 donations assigned to her. So you can see how these 2 tables are now connected to, this is called a sub-data sheet, the 2 records from the donation table that are attached to Michael Bryant. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this table. Moving on to step 8. All right, so it's really important that you have this assignment with you moving forward, because I've created a set of rules that I find are very helpful to students when building queries. So I'm going to go through the rules, and then I'm going to repeat them each time. So it might seem a little bit, oh, it's definitely going to seem repetitive, but that's the point, is that to get you into the habit of how to build each of these queries step by step. And so as a reminder, a query is when you ask the database a question where you're extracting a specific set of information. So prior to this, you would have created a query using a query wizard, which is a very simple tool. Wizards are great in the different applications. They help you build things very quickly. From this point forward, you're always going to use query design. It gives you a lot more control over how to build your query. And so the first thing you always want to do is go to Create, Query Design, and then you want to add both tables to the window. If this window does not appear, let's say you opened up the query and it looks like this, you want to go ahead and click the Show Table button, and that'll add that back. And you want to add both tables to the window and click Close. And so you always want to, this is like the first step you want to do. You want to just add your tables so that you can figure out what fields you want to add. And then you have to add all the fields needed to build the query. And we're going to do that down here in the design grid. So I'm going to jump ahead to step 9. Step 9 has the 5 different queries we're going to create. So I'm going to apply these rules every time, each time I build a query. So I'm going to go ahead and read the question. For 9b, we're going to write a query that answers the following question. What are the club member last name, club member first name, and club affiliation for all club members with a last name of King, sorted in ascending order by club affiliation? So we went ahead and we added the tables in query design, and now you want to ask yourself in reading the query, what fields would I need to answer this query? And we know that it's going to be club member last name. So I go to the club member table and I double click last name, and that adds that to the design grid. Club member first name and club affiliation. Club affiliation comes from a different table. And so you can see I've added these 3 fields. So you definitely have to have the query in front of you, and you want to break it down and figure out what fields I need. Then you want to stop and you want to ask yourself this question. Did I use both tables to pull my fields, or did they only come from one table? And in this case, they came from both tables. So that's great. That means everything's good. We can move on to the next step. In the following examples, you'll see that something different happens. So we use both tables. That's great. Now I have to decide what criteria to put in. But before that you do that, you should always just run the query. Before you type any criteria in, just run it by clicking that little run icon. And what it does is it pulls all the information from, in this case, those 3 fields and puts it into a standard layout. It kind of looks like a table, but it's really a query. And so you can see that I have right now 30 records. In the assignment, I tell you that when you're done with this query, you should have 5 records. So we want to only bring back all of in this query, we want to bring back everything with just a last name of King. Okay, so we just want to bring back the ones that say King here. So to do that, you're going to go back to Design View, and in this criteria line, in the last name field, so I have last name right here, right in criteria, I'm going to type King exactly as it's written or typed in the assignment. And I'm going to click somewhere in the design grid, and you'll see some quotes have been placed around it. That means when I run this query, it's going to find K-I-N-G, a string. That's what the quotes mean. I also know that I want it sorted in ascending order, so right here in the sort line, I can choose ascending. And now when I run it, you'll see, look at that, I got 5 records. Okay, so a query is a subset of information. So now that I have my query, right now the name of it is Query 1. That's not such a great name. So we're going to go ahead and save it with the name given as Kings Clubs Query. Okay, and you'll see that it got added over here to the query section. I'm going to go ahead and close this query, and we're going to go on to the next query. All right, 9C. I'll read it out loud. In ascending order by club affiliation, list all clubs with a donation of $25 or $30. So we're going to follow our steps. We're going to go to Create, Query Design. We add both tables to the window, and then we figure out what fields we need. And in this case, we will need club affiliation and donation amount. Okay, so now you want to stop and ask yourself a question. Did the fields come from both tables or just one? And hopefully right now you're just saying, hey, it's 1. I know it's 1. It's only the donations table. So in this case, if we only used one table, we can go ahead and remove the one we're not using by right-clicking and choosing Remove. If you don't do this step, it will affect the results later on. You're going to get large data sets. You're going to get weird results. So if you stop and you ask yourself this question, it will help you later on down the road. So now remember, once I've added the fields, I just want to go ahead and run it without typing any criteria in. And you can see that I get 30 records. And based on the instructions, I should only get 11 because I want to pull out all the donations where it says $25 or $30. I just want to bring out those. So I'm going to go back to Design View. And now this time in the donation field, in the criteria line, I can type the number 25, the word or, and the number 30. And if I click, you'll see that that or became capitalized. That is actually what's called SQL, which is a language of databases that is used to write queries. And I will tell you right now that the world will pay lots of money for database developers who can write SQL statements. The world today runs on databases and web pages. What you are experiencing and what you're learning right now, you are just skimming the surface when it comes to databases. So you're just learning how databases are built and how they work. I know I also want it to be ascending order by club affiliation, so I'm going to go to the sort line under club affiliation and choose ascending. And I can go ahead and run that. And you'll see I got 11 records. Okay? If I go back to Design View, another way you could have written this was I could have typed 25 on the criteria line, and do you see where it says or right here? I could come down below it and type a 30 right here and run it. Okay, I still got 11 results. It's the same answer. There are different reasons why you want to use the or line. If you're doing multiple criteria on multiple fields, that can come in handy. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and leave it as the 25 or 30 and run it and save it as donations 25 or 30 query. Okay, and then I will close it. You'll see another query was added. All right, the third one. In ascending order by donor last name and then donation amount, what is the last name and first name of donors who gave donations that are $25 or more? Hint, you will need to use a comparison operator for this. What that means is you're using either the greater than, less than, and or equal. That's going to help you in this one. So we're going to go ahead. I know I go to Create, Query Design, I add both tables to the window, and then I decide what fields I'm going to need. In this case, I'm going to need donor last name, donor first name, and then donation amount. And you can see that everything came from one table, just the donations. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the club members table, following those rules that I set forth. I will run it just so I can see what the data looks like. And I want to know, I know that I need to write a query that's going to pull back everything that's 25, 26, 27, 28, so on and so forth. So this time in the criteria line, I'm going to type greater than equal 25. Whoops, 25. So what that reads as, it's reading donation greater than or equal to 25. And also take note that I did not put a dollar sign in there. Okay, there's no dollar. You don't do any kind of formatting in the query. You do that in the front side of the results of the query. And so I'm going to run it, and you see I got 17 results. Okay. Now just to go back to Design View, if you did not include that equal sign and just did greater than 25, you will see that you don't get the right results. You only get 8. Okay. And so if you're thinking to yourself, well, it didn't happen in Excel, Excel and Access are very different. So you have to be very, very specific. And in this case, if you actually want to account for the number 25, you have to include that in the criteria. Also make note that it is different in Access than it is in Excel. Sometimes in Excel, we always type the equal first when we're writing a formula. It's not the same, so things are a bit different. I also wanted to sort it by ascending order by donor last name and then donation amount, so that had a double sort. Then I can run it. And there are my 17 records. I'm going to save it as donations, 25 or more, query. Okay, get another one. Close it. All right. Next one. In ascending order by club last name, list all students who do not have a phone number listed. Do not show the phone number field by hiding it from the design grid in design view. Hint, hide the phone field after you have the correct number of records returned for this query. All right, so we know we're going to go to Create, Query Design, add both tables to the window. What fields do I need? I need club last name. I'm going to expand this. Oh, sorry, club member last name and phone number. And I can see that all my fields came from just this one table, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this other table. Now just run it. This is really where it becomes important, when you just run the query without any results. You can see I have 4 people here who don't have a phone number. That's what I'm trying to pull back, are these empty fields. Okay, and you can see I have 15 results, and if I did it correctly, I should have 4. So I'm going to go back to design view, and in the phone field there is a special criteria called null or is null. If I click outside, you'll see it says is null. Null means empty, nothing, which is not the same as 0. 0 is an actual value, but empty is nothing. 0 can be used in a calculation. Empty means missing. And so I can choose is null. Now if I run it, you'll see that I get those 4 empties. That was super easy. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to hide the phone field. What that means is once you have the correct number of results, which is 4, you can go ahead and uncheck. This is on the show line. You want to uncheck this. And then when you run it, you still have 4 records, but you can see that that phone field is hidden, which if we were going to print this out, would be kind of redundant to have that second phone field there, because we know these are all the people who are missing phone numbers. We're going to sort it in ascending order by last name. Run it one last time. There you go. Save it as missing phone query. Okay. Moving right along. You see we have 4 queries we built. All right, we're going to do the last one, which I think is the most fun. It uses the wildcard character. So this one says, in descending order by club affiliation, list all club names that have the word club in their name. Hint, you will need to use the wildcard character for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and create, query design, add both tables to the window. Then I figure out what fields I need, which in this case I only need club affiliation. So I'm going to remove the club members table because I'm not using it. Okay, and now I'm just going to run it, and you can see I have all different kinds of fields. Clearly I have 30 records. I only want 13. I want to find all the records that have the word club. So you see I have Culinary Arts Club, Chess Club Global, and Radio, TV, and Film Club. I just want to bring back all of those and leave the others behind. So I'm going to break this one down in a couple of steps. So you might think, all right, in the criteria line I could type club and just run it. And what happens is if I just type club and run it, well, I get 0 results. Why, do you ask? Because if I type in an exact match, an exact word, C-L-U-B, that's all it's looking for. Remove that. Run it again. And you can see I have more than just C-L-U-B. I have other words in here. So a really cool character you can use is the asterisk, and that's called the wildcard character. Shift in the number 8 or the multiplication symbol from Excel. So if I do asterisk C-L-U-B, okay, I am going to make a mistake here. I'm telling you ahead of time, and click outside. You can see it says like club. What that means, when I run it, I've got 10 records, and I'm really supposed to have 13. And what you should notice is all of these 10 records have the word club at the end. Okay, the wildcard character, what that does is when you run it in a query, it says, hey, look for any number, character, symbol, space, C-L-U-B. It's sweeping for everything and then ending with the word club. But I know I actually had the word club in some other places. So if I go back here to design view, remove this, and one more time, if I were to type star, club star, okay, like this, that's going to say find every character, letter, space, CLUB, character, letter, space, number. So it's picking up characters on both sides, and it's looking for CLUB, and that could be anywhere. It could be at the beginning, the middle, or the end. If I run it, you'll see that I get my 13 results. Okay, and you can see here's the one that has club in the center. We wanted to sort it by descending. Whoops. Same thing, I hit view instead of run. So the wildcard character is really a very cool character. You want to use it when you're looking for something that it's not an exact match. If you're looking for an exact word or number, don't use the wildcard. If there's many characters in the field and you want to strip them out, that's when you want to use the wildcard. So you can see, we're going to go ahead and save this one. This one's called clubs query. Okay. And you'll see that I have 2 tables, 2, 3, 4, 5 queries, and a report. So there are 8 different objects in this database. I'm going to go ahead and close this query. And so at no point did I ever say, save your database. Only time we ever saved anything was when we were saving the name of the object. In this case, we were creating queries. Something that's super, super important when you are done with Access and you are getting ready to turn this assignment in, you must exit this application. You cannot leave this database open. If you leave this database file open and go to turn it in, you will get an error in Canvas, and actually all that will be turned in is what's called a record locking file, which there's nothing in that file. Whenever you have a database, in this case Access database open, a second file gets generated, which prevents anybody else from accessing the database. And you cannot turn the database in until you have exited and essentially wiped away that record locking file. So I will show you what I'm talking about. All right, here is my Windows Explorer, and you can see here's my table query practice, and here's my table query practice. Both of these files is what I'm working in. Here's the name of my file, table query practice. And you can see this file has a .laccdb. That is that record locking file that is 1 kilobyte. The database I'm actually working on is 544. If I were to go to turn in this database file, leaving Access open, all that would get turned in is this file, which is 1 kilobyte, and I cannot grade it. So when I exit Access, oh, I have so many files open, you will see that that file went away. Okay? So hopefully this helped you with the assignment. I know the video was rather long, but if you stuck with it, you completed it, and you can go ahead and turn it in for full points. Thank you for listening.